Not all tragedies in the YouTube world arise from loneliness, mental struggles, or isolated dangers. Some unfold from ambition, high-risk gambles aimed at viral fame, where the price paid is irreversible. For Pedro Ruiz III, that price was his life. On June 26, 2017, 22-year-old Pedro set out to create what he hoped would be a viral sensation on his budding channel, Dammit Boy. His goal was simple yet dangerous: to achieve internet stardom through a stunt involving a .50 caliber Desert Eagle handgun, a thick hardcover encyclopedia, and his pregnant girlfriend Mona Lisa Perez holding the gun. Pedro dreamed of more than just fleeting fame. He wanted to be legendary. His mantra was one echoed by many desperate creators chasing internet recognition: "I may fail, but if I fail, I want to die trying." Tragically, those words would come to define his final moments. The stunt itself was reckless and ill-conceived. Pedro believed the encyclopedia could stop a bullet from a .50 caliber Desert Eagle, one of the most powerful handgun rounds available. Despite Mona's persistent objections, lasting over a month, Pedro convinced her to go through with it. Mona was pregnant with their second child, clearly uneasy, but ultimately agreed after Pedro assured her the test was safe. Just hours before the attempt, Mona tweeted, "Me and Pedro are probably going to shoot one of the most dangerous videos ever." The stunt was carried out in front of nearly 30 onlookers, including their young daughter, just outside their home in Hallstatt, Minnesota. Pedro stood firmly holding the encyclopedia against his chest. Mona was only a foot away, the Desert Eagle in her hands. Pedro reassured her it would work, convincing her to proceed. Then Mona pulled the trigger. The bullet blasted through the encyclopedia and struck Pedro's chest, delivering a fatal wound. His final words, caught on camera mere moments before the shot, were a desperate plea. "Stop, babe, stop!" Mona's immediate reaction was panic. She called 911, sobbing uncontrollably, but it was too late. Pedro was pronounced dead at the scene. What followed was a legal and emotional ordeal. Mona was charged with second-degree manslaughter. Throughout the trial, it became clear this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment mistake, but a carefully planned stunt driven by ambition, desperation, and the pressure of internet fame. She eventually pleaded guilty, receiving a 180-day jail sentence, 10 years of probation, and a lifetime ban on owning firearms or profiting from the video. Her sentence was split, 90 days in jail, followed by house arrest for the remainder. Though lighter than some expected, Mona's sentence reflected the tragic complexity of the situation. She never intended to kill Pedro, but she was emotionally manipulated and pressured. Yet she still pulled the trigger. Pedro's death stands as a stark warning about the darker side of online fame, where the boundaries between content creation and real-life consequences blur fatally. His story isn't just about one catastrophic stunt. It reveals how far some will go to be noticed, to go viral, and to feel important in a world where attention is the ultimate currency. No number of views, subscribers, or likes could ever justify the price Pedro paid. The video of the fatal stunt remains sealed, never released or monetized legally. Yet the story persists, shared quietly on YouTube forums, debated in Reddit threads, whispered among creators. It has become a cautionary tale, not measured in clicks, but in the grave warning it carries. Pedro Ruiz III chased fame and paid the ultimate cost. His story is a haunting reminder: when the stakes are life itself, there are no second chances. It was July 14th, 2024, a day in China, and Pan Xiaoting was getting ready to go live. The 24-year-old influencer had built her name on mukbang, binge-eating massive quantities of food in front of a cheering audience. For many, it was entertainment. For Pan, it had become everything: her identity, her career, her burden. That day, she sat before the camera like she had so many times before. Her table groaned under the weight of over 22 pounds of food: fried chicken fingers, platters of seafood, and slices of rich chocolate cake. Thousands were already tuned in, flooding the chat with laughing emojis, gifts, virtual roses. She smiled. She waved. She said hello. No one watching knew it would be her last stream. Pan hadn't always lived like this. She once worked as a waitress, just a young woman looking for a way forward. Then she stumbled into the world of mukbang, watching others eat on livestream. It started as a hobby, something harmless. But her bright personality, her willingness to take on shocking food challenges, they pulled people in. The views came, so did the money and the pressure. In time, she quit her job, rented a studio, bought equipment. She went all in. The more extreme her streams got, the more fans she earned. It wasn't long before Pan Xiaoting was one of China's most watched mukbang creators. Her face a regular presence on smartphones and tablets across the country. But while her popularity soared, something else was slowly breaking inside her. Her parents tried to warn her. They begged her to stop. They pleaded for her to see what was happening to her body. But Pan always brushed it off. "I can handle it," she'd say. "I know what I'm doing." They didn't know about the hospital stays, the internal bleeding, the pain that came once the cameras turned off. Or maybe they did. But what do you do when your child is chasing a dream that's slowly killing them? That day, the stream began like any other. 10 hours, she said. A full-blown eating marathon. Her audience cheered her on, completely unaware of the quiet desperation behind her determined grin. At first, she chatted and laughed, wolfing down piece after piece like she always did. But something was off. As the hours dragged on, her energy faded. Her smile faltered. Her breathing grew heavier. Her hands moved slower. Viewers began to worry. Comments filled the screen. "Pan, slow down. Take a break." But she didn't stop. She couldn't. And then, a sudden motion, a faint gasp. Her head dropped. The screen shook as she collapsed. For a moment, there was only silence. Then chaos, frantic comments, screams from the chat. But it was already too late. When emergency responders arrived, Pan Xiaoting was unresponsive. The autopsy revealed the horror. Her stomach had ruptured under the extreme pressure. Her digestive system, already weakened from repeated stress and previous injuries, couldn't handle the weight of one more challenge. She died on camera. Mukbang wasn't supposed to be like this. It started as a way to feel less alone. A stranger on your screen eating a meal with you, talking, laughing. But over time, the genre twisted into a spectacle of excess. A race to the bottom. Who could eat more? Who could shock the audience? Who could bleed for the algorithm and smile through it? China had already tried to fight back. In 2021, new laws cracked down on binge-eating content, but streamers like Pan found ways around it. Psychologists called it a dangerous game. Dietitians warned it was suicide in slow motion, but none of that matters when the comments keep coming, and the audience keeps cheering, and you feel like the only way to matter is to keep going. Pan's fans were heartbroken. Some posted memorials. Others shared her old clips, remembering her infectious laughter and warmth. But alongside the mourning came anger toward the culture, the pressure, the platforms that let this happen. Why did no one step in? Why do we keep watching people fall apart for our entertainment? Why is pain so easy to monetize? Her death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a mirror, a reflection of what this world does to those trying to be seen. Her story is more than just the end of a live stream. It's a cry for help buried under fried chicken and flashing emojis. From the instant Greg Plitt appeared on camera, his intensity was undeniable. He wasn't simply a fitness personality. He embodied raw determination and relentless drive. A former Army Ranger and West Point graduate, Greg had leapt from over 1,000 planes during his military career, and he carried that same fearless, high-octane energy into his post-military life. When he entered the world of fitness, he wasn't content to just offer routines or motivational talk. He lived every word he preached. Greg wasn't about aesthetics or surface-level gains. He was about grit, pushing mental and physical boundaries, and challenging people to break through limitations. Launching his YouTube channel in 2009, Greg transformed it into a platform that felt less like a fitness vlog and more like a digital boot camp. His videos weren't passive how-tos, they were charged calls to action. With over 120 uploads, Greg's message was unwavering. Give more, train harder, stop making excuses. His delivery was intense, part motivational coach, part soldier on a mission. You've got more inside of you than you know, he'd shout. Stop selling yourself short. Every clip felt like he was speaking directly to you, daring you to do more, become your best self. To thousands, Greg became more than just an online trainer. He was a mentor, a leader, a relentless advocate for transformation through discomfort. He taught that pain wasn't a sign to quit. It was evidence that growth was happening. He believed progress demanded sacrifice, that chasing greatness meant embracing discomfort. And Greg didn't just encourage others to adopt this mindset. He modeled it in everything he did. But tragically, it was that same uncompromising pursuit of excellence that led to his untimely death. In January 2015, Greg was filming a promotional video for his fitness brand in Burbank, California. The concept? A cinematic, high-intensity sequence of him sprinting along active train tracks. The intent might have been to capture a powerful visual, Greg, full throttle, running with unwavering purpose. Some reports suggest he may have tried to outrun the train for dramatic effect. Others believe he miscalculated his position or the train's timing. Eyewitnesses said Greg wore all black and carried a camcorder as he ran. In a flash, the shoot turned into tragedy. A Metrolink commuter train struck him during filming. One observer who viewed surveillance footage of the incident said they saw Greg stumble right as the train approached. The train went by, they recalled. I saw him stumble over the tracks, and then that was it. It wasn't the first time Greg had filmed on train tracks. Previous videos featured stunts like push-ups between the rails. For him, danger may have been just another element to conquer, but this time it proved fatal. News of his death spread rapidly, shaking the fitness world and his devoted fan base. It was a devastating loss, and a stark reminder of how quickly risk can turn into tragedy. Greg Plitt lived with unrelenting fire, constantly in motion, always pushing past the edge. His words, his energy, and his lessons continue to inspire. Don't settle, he said. Don't quit. And thousands still echo those words. But in his final moments, Greg showed just how thin the line can be between extreme commitment and irreversible risk. His passing wasn't just tragic, it was a haunting reflection of how even the strongest can fall while chasing greatness. It was a quiet day in the Tibetan highlands, September 14th, 2020. In beautiful region of Aba, nestled in China's Sichuan province, a woman named Lamu began her morning like any other, with a song. To her 780,000 followers on Douyin, China's version of TikTok, Lamu was more than just an influencer. But behind those gentle videos was a truth she rarely spoke of. Lamu was living in the shadow of fear. She had married a man named Tang, and that marriage, far from the peace she shared online, was full of pain. In June 2020, she divorced him, but Tang wasn't done with her. He began harassing her relentlessly, demanding she return to him. She stood firm. She said no. That morning, she posted a video of herself singing a traditional Tibetan song, soft, serene, maybe even hopeful. No one knew it would be her last. Later that day, she went live. Her followers tuned in as they always did, expecting calm, comfort, familiarity. But then, the screen suddenly went dark. There was no picture, just sound, and the sound was terrifying. It was Tang. He had broken into her home, carrying a bucket of flammable liquid. He confronted her in the middle of the stream, and then he lit the match. The fire erupted. Viewers couldn't see it, but they could hear everything. Thousands of people, helpless, listening as a woman they cared about was burned alive in real time. Neighbors rushed in, desperately trying to save her. They smothered the flames and called for help. Lamu was taken to the hospital with burns over 90% of her body. For 2 agonizing weeks, she fought to survive, but on September 30th, she slipped away. When news of her death broke, it spread like wildfire. People were devastated, furious, heartbroken. Across China and beyond, fans flooded her Douyin account with messages of grief, love, and disbelief. How could something like this happen? How could a woman who had already escaped abuse be left so vulnerable? Tang was arrested and charged with intentional homicide. In October 2021, the court sentenced him to death, calling his actions extremely cruel and acknowledging the enormous public impact of the case. But for many, justice still felt far away. Lamu's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a spark, a wake-up call. In 2016, China passed a law criminalizing domestic violence, but critics say it doesn't go far enough. Same-sex couples aren't protected. Emotional and financial abuse are still often ignored. And, culturally, many people are still told to keep it in the family, meaning victims rarely get the help they need. During her marriage, Lamu had gone to the authorities. She had tried to speak up, but her pleas were dismissed, written off as family disputes. That failure cost her her life. In 2020, China introduced a 30-day cooling-off period for couples seeking divorce. It was meant to reduce impulsive separations. But for women like Lamu, it's a dangerous delay, one that traps victims in relationships they're desperate to escape. A 2013 survey by the All China Women's Federation revealed that 1 in 4 married women in China have experienced domestic violence. In rural areas, it's even more widespread. There's no easy exit, no clear path to safety. After her death, activists, fans, and ordinary citizens pushed back against the silence. Her Douyin page turned into a digital memorial. Lamu's life was about resilience, simplicity, beauty in the everyday. But her death was a brutal reminder of what happens when systems fail the people who need them most. In March 2014, a chilling video surfaced on the Whirlpool Hitman YouTube channel, opening with a quote that echoed with haunting clarity: "Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever." At first, it seemed like another daring upload from a man who thrived on danger and chaos. But behind the screen was Jacob Koschel, a 28-year-old thrill-seeker from West Cornwall, England, whose deep fascination with risk would ultimately cost him his life. Jacob wasn't your typical adrenaline junkie. His channel was a unique blend of extreme sports footage and personal reflection. Fans watched him take on some of the most dangerous stunts imaginable: cave diving, cliff jumping, swimming through stormy seas. But the one constant was his obsession with whirlpools. These swirling, powerful vortices of water represented more than just natural hazards to Jacob. They were challenges, tests of will, and perhaps even symbolic spiritual forces pulling him toward the edge. On May 28, 2013, a particularly fierce whirlpool formed in Sanan Cove, a rugged coastal spot Jacob knew well. Unlike any whirlpool he had encountered before, this one was vast, violent, and almost alive in its intensity. Drawn like a moth to a flame, Jacob couldn't resist the temptation to face it head-on and to capture it on camera. He enlisted his friend, David Rain, to film the stunt. True to Jacob's eccentric style, he donned a rubber horse mask for the dive, a darkly humorous flourish that highlighted his desire not only to confront danger, but to turn it into a spectacle. As Jacob plunged into the swirling waters, David filmed from the safety of the rocky shore, initially cracking jokes but gradually growing more anxious. For half an hour, Jacob maneuvered through the deadly currents with a skill that was equal parts awe-inspiring and terrifying. At one point, he likened the whirlpool's pull to surfing a wave, joking, "It's really similar to surfing, just flowing with it." But David sensed the risk was escalating and urged Jacob to stop. "I reckon you got enough? You got enough footage?" he called out. Yet Jacob was relentless. Determined to get a shot from the heart of the vortex, he asked for a stick-mounted GoPro to film from inside the whirlpool itself. He dove once more, and this time he never resurfaced. Seconds dragged into minutes. Panic consumed David, who plunged into the water in desperate search. What he found was far from the fearless adventurer they all knew. Jacob's lifeless body, face down and caught in the whirlpool's merciless grip. The final video was later posted to the channel after Jacob's death. What was once a playful, inspiring mantra now felt like a chilling prophecy. It was no longer just words. It was a haunting reminder of a life spent dancing dangerously close to death. Jacob Koschel had built his existence on pushing limits, capturing every leap, dive, and near-fatal moment on camera. But in the end, it was the whirlpool that claimed him. His funeral was packed beyond capacity. The church overflowed with mourners, while others gathered outside, united not only in grief, but in celebration of a man who lived boldly and without apologies. To many, Jacob was more than a daredevil. He was a philosopher of risk, a man who sought meaning where others saw only danger. Ultimately, Jacob Koschel didn't just pursue adrenaline, he embodied it, immortalized forever in that final haunting dive into the swirling abyss. It was a quiet evening in Suffolk, Virginia, May 16, 2024. Inside one home, something was unfolding, something that would leave a family shattered. 17-year-old Raleigh Freeman III, known to fans as Rio Huncho, was live on social media again, a rising voice in the local rap scene. His performances had energy that caught fire. With nearly 28,700 Instagram followers and tracks gaining traction on Spotify, Rio was building something big. That night, his stream started off like so many others. He was charismatic, confident, and like many young rappers in his lane, he sometimes flashed props to fit the aesthetic: cash, fashion, and that night, a handgun. It wasn't new, he'd posed with one before, but this one was different. Real, with a green laser sight and flashlight. In the video, Rio waved it casually, almost playfully, as if the weight of what he was holding didn't register. He laughed. He spoke boldly into the camera. Then, he pointed the gun at his head. One breath, one trigger pull, a bang. The phone hit the ground, and everything stopped. At first, no one knew what to believe. Was it a stunt? A special effect? Had Rio just pulled off a shocking moment to keep his audience guessing? But as seconds turned to minutes, the realization hit like ice. This wasn't a performance. It wasn't a joke. Rio had accidentally shot himself. Live, paramedics arrived quickly. He was rushed to the hospital, but the damage was done. The moment that started as just another live stream had ended with the loss of a young life, just like that. The news tore through the community, but no one felt it harder than his mother, Monica Savage, a single mother. A woman who had poured everything she had into raising her only son. In a heart-wrenching interview, she recalled the moment she found him. Her voice broke as she cried out, "I just want my baby back." It was the kind of grief that lives deep in the bones, a kind that never fades. His cousin launched a GoFundMe to help cover the funeral. At his school, the halls felt heavier. Teacher Kara Dorsey shared memories of him online, urging students to chase their dreams the way Rio had. But even as the community mourned, questions began to rise, questions that needed answers. How did a 17-year-old get his hands on a loaded firearm? Why was it accessible? Why wasn't it locked away? Authorities opened an investigation, determined to understand what had gone so wrong. The footage, undeniably live, spread fast. Some watched in disbelief. Others criticized those who had doubted it was real in the first place. It was tragic, raw, unfiltered. The internet can sometimes blur the line between spectacle and reality, and this time, the cost of that blur was a human life. Rio's music still echoes in the headphones of those who followed him. Tracks like Money Getta, Bag Talk, and DOA pulse with rhythm, ambition, raw honesty. His Spotify profile even hinted at his love for pop culture, with a photo of actress Mia Goth standing in as his cover art, showing his playful, creative side. He wasn't just trying to be a rapper. He was one, with a voice, a vision, a future. Gun safety experts have long warned about accidental firearm deaths, especially among teens. Many of these tragedies are preventable. Simple precautions like locking weapons away, keeping ammunition separate, educating families on firearm risks. These things can save lives, but too often they're ignored until it's too late. Kelly Drain, a researcher in gun policy, spoke out after Rio's death. She stressed that tragedies like this are not inevitable. They're not fate. They're failures. Failures of oversight, of access, of awareness. And now, all that's left is a void. A boy with dreams, gone. A mother with no son. A mic left silent. James Stobbe, known online as Stobe the Hobo, wasn't your average YouTube creator. While most YouTubers built their followings through vlogs, gaming, or lifestyle content, James carved a very different path, one that felt more like a chapter from a classic American novel than a modern internet channel. His videos chronicled his life as a 21st century vagabond, hopping freight trains across the country with little more than a camera, a backpack, and an adventurous spirit. There was something almost hypnotic about his content. Perched calmly on the edge of a moving boxcar, Stowe would speak to his viewers in a low, mellow tone, often mixing dry humor with genuine observations. He'd comment on the changing scenery, point out small towns with quirky charm, or reflect on the overlooked beauty of rusting rails and forgotten places. In one moment of quiet narration, he remarked, "We'll be crossing the Red River into North Dakota and Fargo, which looks a little more interesting." It was those simple observational moments that made his videos so compelling. But while the tone of his videos was often serene, the reality of his lifestyle was anything but safe. Train hopping is illegal, unpredictable, and extremely dangerous. That risk, however, was part of what drew James to it. He wasn't in it for views or internet fame. He was chasing something deeper: raw freedom, untouched solitude, and the romantic mystery of the open rails. His videos didn't just showcase travel. They captured a way of life that most people couldn't imagine, filmed from rail yards, abandoned tracks, and the backs of moving freight cars. Then came the tragic end to his journey. On November 8, 2017, James lost his life in what was officially labeled a train-related accident in Baltimore, Maryland. But even now, the full details remain unclear. Some reports claimed that his backpack got caught on a fast-moving Amtrak train while he was on a bridge, pulling him down. Others speculated he fell from an overpass. No single version of events was ever confirmed. The lack of clarity around his death only added to the somber and mysterious aura surrounding his final days. His fans were devastated. A fellow rail rider and close friend, known online as Spike, shared a heartbreaking tribute. "Jim and I go back many, many, many years," he said, his voice heavy with grief. "Last week, Jim was killed in a freak accident involving an Amtrak train. Today was the saddest day of my life." Just under 2 weeks later, on November 20th, James was laid to rest. But Stowe the Hobo was never just about thrill-seeking. He was a quiet philosopher of forgotten landscapes, someone who found grace and meaning in places most people overlook. His videos weren't stunts, they were reflections. He brought beauty to rusted rails, abandoned stations, and endless stretches of open sky. He lived on the edges of society, not for attention, but to prove there's still space to wander. In a strange and tragic way, the manner of his death felt like the final line of the story he'd been writing with every mile. James died doing what he loved, riding the rails, seeking freedom, documenting a life off the grid. He'll be remembered not just as a YouTuber, but as a modern-day poet of the rails, someone who truly lived in a way most never dare. It was a quiet summer evening in Quzhou, China, July 20th, 2021. 23-year-old Xiao Qumei, known online as Xiao Yi, remained in her crane cabin, taking in one last peaceful moment after a long day. To her thousands of followers on Douyin, she was more than just a crane operator. She was a force, a young mother of two, confidently working one of the most physically demanding and male-dominated jobs out there. Through her videos, she gave people a rare window into her world, perched hundreds of feet in the air, laughing, dancing, explaining the technical parts of her work with ease. Her joy was infectious, her courage inspiring. That evening, as golden hour bathed the horizon, Xiao decided to record one final clip before heading home. Just a short video, just a little slice of her life. She smiled into the camera, cheerful and proud, her voice carrying softly over the wind. Then, something changed. The footage suddenly shifted. Blurry flashes of metal, a sudden jolt, and then a scream. A scream so sharp, so real, it sliced through the quiet. And then, silence. Xiao had fallen 160 feet from her crane to the unforgiving ground below. When emergency responders arrived, it was too late. She was pronounced dead at the scene. News of her death hit the internet like a wave. Fans were stunned, heartbroken, confused. How could someone so full of life, who had just smiled into the camera minutes before, be gone? Some began sharing the footage of her fall, fueling online speculation and sorrow. Was she holding her phone? Was it a tragic mistake caught on camera? Or was something more to blame? Her family, broken with grief, spoke out. They insisted Xiao wasn't filming when she fell. She had always been responsible, they said, always kept her phone tucked safely in her bag while working. According to them, the accident happened not because she was distracted, but because of a missed step while climbing down from the crane. A slip, a single misstep in a job that leaves no room for error. And just like that, a mother, a daughter, a wife was gone. Her funeral was held in silence and simplicity. Her ashes rested on a small table beneath an umbrella, surrounded by those who loved her most. No fanfare, no spotlight, just sorrow and the memory of a life that had burned so brightly. Authorities launched an investigation into the accident, but no further details were released. Questions lingered in the air like dust on a hot summer wind. Were safety protocols ignored? Was this preventable? And beneath it all, another question whispered across social media. What is the cost of chasing connection online? Xiao's story became more than just news. It became a reckoning, a reminder that real lives lie behind the videos we watch, the likes we tap. A reminder that influence comes with invisible weight, and sometimes with heartbreaking risk. Just weeks before, another influencer, Sophia Chung, had died while taking a photo near a waterfall. The parallels were haunting. Young women building lives online, lost in the blink of an eye while doing what they loved. Xiao Qiumei didn't chase fame. She chased the sky. She climbed high, both literally and metaphorically, to build a better life for her children and to break barriers in a job few women dared to touch. Her legacy isn't just the videos she left behind, it's the space she carved out for others like her. And now, in the silence that follows her fall, her voice still echoes, a soft reminder of how fragile and precious life can be, even in the strongest hands. Not every YouTube journey is filled with excitement, adventure, or fame. Some begin with innocent dreams and end in unimaginable heartbreak. Such was the tragic case of Harley Dilley, a 13-year-old boy from Port Clinton, Ohio, who, like many kids his age, simply wanted to be a YouTuber. What started as a young boy sharing his world online ended in a community grieving a devastating loss. On August 20th, 2019, Harley launched his second YouTube channel, Harley Dilley 2.0. His videos were lighthearted and typical for a kid his age, mobile gameplay of Madden NFL 20, the occasional vlog, and commentary filled with youthful enthusiasm. There were no flashy thumbnails or attention-grabbing stunts, just a boy excited to be part of the digital era. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing connection and fun, hoping his voice would be heard among millions. But just 4 months later, on December 20th, Harley left his house for school and never returned. He didn't show up to class, he didn't come home. And alarmingly, he wasn't reported missing until over 40 hours later. That delay raised immediate concern, not just among local authorities, but online communities who followed the unfolding story. Suspicion soon grew, particularly toward Harley's home life and family. Internet users began combing through Harley's content, and on platforms like Reddit, theories began to emerge. Some speculated his home life was troubled. Rumors suggested he was sometimes locked out of his house or left outside for long periods. A few users uncovered clips where Harley casually mentioned conflicts with his parents. In one clip, he described a heated moment with his mother. "My mom wanted me to go with her to get a friend, and I said I don't want to. I have work to do, I want to go home and stay." We argued for about 5 minutes. Then she snapped. Said she was going to call the police. Said she already did. While these statements didn't confirm abuse, they painted a picture of possible emotional strain and a lack of support. Meanwhile, Harley's disappearance triggered a massive effort. Volunteers searched daily. Police followed leads. Vigils were held. The town of Port Clinton rallied behind his name, hoping for his safe return. But as days turned to weeks, hope began to fade. Then, on January 13th, 2020, nearly a month after Harley vanished, the mystery came to a tragic conclusion. His body was discovered inside the chimney of a vacant house just across the street from his own home. Investigators believe Harley had climbed onto the roof and tried to enter the house through the chimney, possibly to escape the cold, hide after an argument, or find refuge. Tragically, he became stuck and died of asphyxiation. There was no sign he was filming at the time, and foul play was ruled out. But questions lingered. The strange and heartbreaking nature of his death shocked both the local community and the wider internet. Harley wasn't a controversial figure. He wasn't doing anything dangerous for views. He was just a boy with a dream, a phone, and a YouTube channel, trying to carve out a small place in the world. A local news anchor summarized the city's grief during a memorial broadcast. The city of Port Clinton continues to rally tonight for Harley Dilley, the teenager who got trapped and died in a chimney. Harley's story serves as a sobering reminder. Not every dream leads to success, and youth does not shield one from tragedy. He wanted to be seen, to be heard, and in the end, his story touched the world in the most painful of ways. It was January 27th, 2021 in the small town of Smolensk, Russia. Inside a cramped, chaotic apartment, 60-year-old Yuri Dudin, lovingly known to the internet as Grandpa, sat in front of a camera once again. For many viewers, Yuri had become a familiar face as part of a controversial YouTube channel called First Step. But behind the screen, this wasn't just another quirky live stream. This one would end in silence. The stream started like so many others. About 150 people tuned in to watch. But they weren't just passive viewers, they were participants. As donations rolled in, so did demands. Drink more, take another shot, prove yourself, and Yuri, ever the crowd favorite, raised the bottle. They egged him on. They paid to watch. Almost 1.5 liters of vodka disappeared down his throat, glass after glass. The chat moved fast. Donations ticked up. But Yuri, he was fading. His words slurred. His body swayed. And then he dropped. No cut to black, no end screen, just Yuri, lying still on the floor. For a long time, his lifeless body remained on camera. The stream didn't stop. Neither did some of the comments. While a few viewers panicked and begged someone to call for help, others kept joking, acting like it was just part of the twisted show. A dark, sickening spectacle. By the time emergency services reached his address on Udarov Street, it was too late. He was gone. The channel's host, a 39-year-old man known only as JEA, had built his following on what's known in Russia as trash streaming. These streams exploit people who are homeless, addicted, or just struggling, and dangle money in front of them to do increasingly dangerous and humiliating things. Live for an audience. The more painful, the more extreme, the more money rolled in. Yuri had become a fixture. A character, a mascot. Viewers called him Grandpa with fondness, but few stopped to think about what it meant that he kept coming back to drink himself sick for their entertainment. Over time, the pressure to do more, to go further, only grew. That night, it reached a breaking point. As the shock of Yuri's death spread, authorities moved in. Russia's investigative committee launched a criminal case, targeting the organizers behind the stream. Prosecutors began combing through footage, messages, and viewer donations to piece together the full story. What emerged was deeply disturbing, a pattern of reckless endangerment and casual cruelty, all for clicks and cash. Yuri's death hit a nerve. Russian Senator Alexei Pushkov went public, calling for an immediate crackdown on trash streams. He demanded legislation to ban this kind of content, arguing that the internet had become a playground for exploitation, where vulnerable people were used up and discarded. If nothing changes, if these platforms keep prioritizing engagement over ethics, if society keeps laughing while people fall apart on camera, then Yuri won't be the last. And next time, it could be someone else's grandpa.